This is Andy Purewal for ID Boxing. I'm joined by trainer manager Adam Booth here in London. Adam, I've tracked you down. I've been messaging you over WhatsApp. I've been unable to get you over Zoom, but I've got one in person with you. How are you? How is life?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Obviously, I'm glad that we were able to catch up now. Massive fight for Josh Kelly, Troy Williamson, British super welterweight title. You spoke about it on stage, but why do you feel this is the right move, a correct move for Josh at this stage of his career?
Just where he is as a man, as a fighter, where Troy is, the styles, the age, everything. I mean, there's so many little bits of detail and information that go into leaving a coach believing, yep, it's the right time for my man. Just like their side does. And one's going to be right and one's going to be wrong.
Adam, Troy said on stage that if he's victorious, he thinks he can end the career of Josh. What did you make of those remarks?
I don't know. I don't really give it too much attention. We're focused on what we believe and what we think is going to happen. And we're certainly not thinking about after the fight. We're too busy about thinking the fight.
I've asked Josh, I've asked Kala, and I'm going to ask you yourself as his trainer, somebody who's worked with him for so many years. One thing people have started to ask and maybe question is Josh's remaining desire and hunger within the sport. You work with him day in, day out. What do you say to anybody who has questioned what Josh has left in him?
Tune in on December the 2nd to Channel 5 and watch this fight. Because the only way that Josh can answer that question is by winning. It's the only way he can answer it.
Is it enough just to win though, given the kind of how Josh had been built up previously?
He's not a show pony now, he's a fighter. And it's about winning the fight, it's about winning the rounds, it's about winning the moments. So yeah, it is about winning. It's about winning as many of those little moments that happen in a 36-minute fight.
Going into this fight, Adam, Troy's looked as maybe the more aggressive of the two, Josh the better skilled boxer, as it were. Is it as simple as that when you look at it? Or?
That's certainly the boundaries of their styles are, yes, Troy's got a high work rate, big, strong, physical pressure, and Josh is the one that seems to have the more unpredictable skill set. That's the sort of broad scope of the story, but Troy's a better boxer than probably people give him credit for. Josh is a much better fighter than people give him credit for. So whether you're a boxer or a fighter, whether you're aggressive or you're a boxer, you still have to be able to fight. And they both, I think they're both doing British boxing proud in how they've gone about their careers and the fact that they're in this fight now.
One thing again I'm interested to know about Adam is Josh mentioned on stage some of the previous struggles he had battling with his mental health. Now as his trainer, somebody who guided him through some of those fights, and going back to the David-Avanesyan one he mentioned specifically. What were your thoughts around it all at that time? For example, did you feel like he was in the right frame of mind to step into the ring with David?
So on that fight, that fight was a really difficult one because he'd already pulled out the fight before, and we knew he couldn't pull out of the fight. There was a lot of pressure on it. He didn't want to pull out, but he wasn't in the right place. And during the fight week, 1 minute he'd look okay, next minute thinking, no, there's something not right here. But it needed the pressure cooker of that fight to expose what was going on in him. That in hindsight we realised was there about 1.5 years before, and so he's taken time to reflect and find the right person and the right process to resolve these things in him, and he has. And that's like the blue sky after the dark days, and that's been the thing that's now led me to, okay, well, you're 28 years old, we know the talent you got, we know you're tough, we know that you're talented, and we know you want to do it, but now we know that you have the stability mentally to actually try and fulfill your potential.
What was kind of your way around trying to help Josh in that period, Adam?
Well, I won't go into that too much, but we reached out to some different people until eventually he found the right person that had the right formula to help him.
You go and look at beyond this fight then, provided Josh is successful, where does he go beyond it?
I'm not going to look beyond the fight. Why would we? Like why are you going to be building up to a fight like this that's going to be this entertaining and this competitive, thinking about, well, what's after it then? You know what I mean? But that's the culture. I don't care about after the fight. All I care about is enjoying the hard work that we're doing now and looking forward to fight week and looking forward to the competition.
Of course, there's always a few other topics I just want to get your thoughts on, Adam. One of the times when I'd previously messaged you was around the time of Conor Benn's positive VADA test. Now, we haven't caught up since, as we said. Just want to go back to that. Adam, what was your initial reaction when you heard that news?
Just really, not again. And it evolved into a sort of lack of confidence in how the administration and the protocol and the organisations around these things seem to be really incoherent, and just hoping that it gets better.
How much of a surprise was it to you, Adam, that kind of there was certainly a push to try and keep the fight on up until that joint statement between Calla and Eddie? How much of a surprise was it to you that there was a continued push to try to keep the fight on up until that joint statement that Eddie and Calla did together?
I don't know, I mean, a surprise? I don't know. I don't know if that's the word I would use. It's just looking at it thinking, really? Okay. It's not the first time this has happened. May not be the last time, but it was a high profile thing. There was a lot of money invested in it, and there's a whole mess still to sort out. Now, I'm not saying that I believe Conor Benn is or isn't guilty. I think there's still a B sample to be tested, and there's still, an explanation to be had. My frustration is how the whole thing seems to be so incoherent and inconsistent.
What are your biggest gripes with the system then, Adam?
That, how does VADA get a positive test? UCAD gets a negative test. Why don't the Board of Control recognise VADA? Why are promoters using an agency that aren't recognised by the governing body, which automatically causes an argument if one gives a positive test and one gives a negative test, and use a negative test to override the positive? Do you understand? It's just a mess, and and doping is a science anyway, where a lot of people get away with it, and you just want to have the confidence that there's a structure that can give these fellas who are clean athletes in a combat sport as much protection and assurity as they should get.
Adam, the reason why I bring this up with you now is, and I asked Josh about this earlier, obviously Josh and Conor once upon a time were linked to potentially face each other. Depending on what happens with Conor, as that's an ongoing situation there, would you be open to one day seeing Josh and Conor share a ring, or but because of what's happened over the past few weeks, would you not be happy to see Josh step in the ring with Conor?
I'm just going to go back to my previous. I am not looking past December 2nd. I don't want to look past December 2nd. I want to enjoy all these weeks leading up to it. I want to enjoy the fight week, and I want to enjoy the competition on fight night. What will be after will be. Anything's possible. You might even move up to heavyweight. Who knows, right? But it's about this for me. It's not about anyone else.
That's fair enough. Just to get your thoughts on another man who Josh previously fought. We mentioned David Avanesyan earlier. Terence Crawford fight came out of the blue. Just want to get your thoughts when you heard that fight announced.
Yeah, well, I was disappointed that Spence Crawford's not been made. Really disappointed in that, because that was today's version of Leonard Hearns, and it looks like if it's not happening now, when is it going to happen? So that's potentially the downside, that we're potentially losing one of the elite fights of this generation. But I'm not surprised that David Avanesyan is fighting Terence Crawford, because I know that Avanesyan is a true competitor at world level and wouldn't shirk a fight with anyone.
Terence is, of course, a huge favourite for that fight, Adam. But how or what does David have to do to be successful, and how would you rate his chances?
I don't think he's got to be him, not stand off and box. He needs to try and expose whatever weaknesses he can find in a fighter that doesn't seem to really have any apparent weaknesses in a southpaw or orthodox style.
Adam, also want to get your thoughts on Fury-Chisora 3, a negative reaction when that fight was announced last week. What went through your mind when you heard it?
Anything that wasn't AJ Fury was going to get a negative reaction, and the fact that he's already beaten Derek twice before kind of helped magnify that and gave it more noise. But the one thing I know about Derek Chisora is you never know what you're going to get, and he is as experienced as any heavyweight out there. He's fought numerous world heavyweight champions, and I know Derek can blow hot and cold. So he can turn up one day and be absolutely useless, turn up another day and push Vitaly Klitschko 12 rounds. So don't sleep on Derek, because if he gets himself in shape and he's up for it and he's got that taste for it on fight night, he can pose questions for anyone. So no, I don't think you should be sleeping on that one and disrespecting it too much.
One name that people were mentioning and would have liked to have seen if it would have been possible is Fury versus Joyce, if it could have been pushed a couple of weeks later on. Obviously, you used to work with Joe. Is it a surprise to you to see Joe right there now? Everybody's expecting that soon to be world title challenge.
No, he is the one that none of them need. If you only fight Joyce if you have to, or if you're getting paid enough money to make it worth your while. Because if you don't nail him to the canvas, you're in for a hard night. At best, you're in for a hard night. I know how hard and heavy-handed he is. I know how awkward he is to read with his disjointed rhythm. He's got that obvious world-class chin and an engine that just ramps up and up as the 12 rounds go on. And he's big. Who wants that?
One thing people have asked, you've just mentioned, you've got to nail him to the floor, is how Joe could fare against Deontay Wilder. How excited would you to be if we could potentially see Joe and Deontay share the ring? And do you think he could stand up to the power that's in Deontay's right hand?
Absolutely. Of course he can. But, everyone was saying, will he be able to, if Daniel Dubois, who has obvious power, what happens when he lands on Joe? Well, firstly, he didn't actually land that often and cleanly on Joe. And when he did land, it didn't really make much difference. I've seen Joe in sparring get hit with a clean shot, hard, big clean shot, and all it does is make him more aggressive and more assertive. I've seen people mess around and box and fiddle with him, and it almost switches him off. It's almost like, don't kick the elephant, right? Just stroke him, and you might get a more pacified Joyce. But when you load up on him, all you're doing is provoking a harder comeback.
Which also leads into the next question. People would also love to see Joyce and Alexander Usyk reignite their amateur rivalry. Alexander's again seen more as kind of a slick boxer, one of the best technicians in the ring. How do you think a professional bout would play out between Joe and Alexander?
Well, maybe Alexander's got the skill set and the ability to beat Joe without prodding the bear, right? Without loading up on him. But it would be fascinating. Yeah, he won the amateur bout, or what was it, a WSB, against Joe. But that was amateur boxing. This is professional, and if Joe decided just to tear into him and apply pressure over and over again relentlessly, it'll be interesting to see how the naturally smaller man would manage to cope. Because in the second AJ fight, when AJ tried to assert himself more physically, you could see that Usyk was fading in the later rounds in a way that he didn't do in the first fight. Now, what we do know about Joyce is that he can apply pressure better than anyone when he does. So that would be a fascinating one for me.
Prediction?
On Joe and Usyk, I'll refer to my previous statement. Nobody needs Joyce.
All right, Adam, I appreciate your time now. I know everybody's wrapping up here, so thank you for speaking to me in ID Boxing.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.